We are.
It does.
All right, welcome everyone. Today is July 8th. This is our full council meeting. If you would stand as you're able to help us get the meeting started with pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Prudhomme, would you do a roll call, please?
Pleasure. Ms. Brewer is absent. Mr. Fisher? Here. Dr. Fisher?
Here.
Ms. Crimer is absent. Ms. Nail?
Here.
Mr. Michelson? Here.
All right, is there a motion to excuse Mr. Brewer?
Motion to excuse Ms. Brewer.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to excuse Ms. Kramer?
Motion to excuse Ms. Kramer.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right, and looking at the agenda, I'm aware of two things that we would like to do to amend the agenda. One has to do with a tax ordinance that our solicitor would like to put forward. The other is that we'll be swearing in one of our part-time police officials. So with those two amendments, is there any other amendments that are suggested?
Yeah, we need to, I believe we are removing from the agenda the resolution to adopt the Gulf Manor policy regarding dealings with nonprofit entities. 24-9.
Okay. An explanation for that will be provided in the executive committee report.
Yes.
Any other additions, subtractions from the agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Without objection, I'll take that as unanimous. We also need to approve or amend the minutes that are in the packet from last week, July 2nd. Everyone, I'm presuming, has had an opportunity to look at those minutes. Are there any changes that need to be made? Absent
I
that,
was thinking, I don't think so.
absent that, is there a motion to accept the minutes from 7/2/24?
Motion to accept the minutes from our previous meeting.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. All right. Without objection from Chief Meter, I'm going to ask Shane Ward to step forward and receive the oath of office. You would raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Sir,
I, Shane Ward,
I, Shane Ward,
do affirm
do affirm
that I will uphold and defend
that I will uphold and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
Constitution and laws of the state of Ohio,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Ohio,
the charter and ordinances of the Village of Gulf Manor,
the charter and ordinances of the Village of Gulf Manor,
and I will faithfully and fairly
and I will faithfully and fairly
engage in the duties to which I have been appointed.
engage in the duties to which I have been appointed.
Congratulations.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you to the village.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome to the family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chief Meter.
We'll start with last month, with the big one. Okay, so I was able to provide a brief summary to the village administrator, who kindly was supposed to pass it on to the administration and the council members, and it was posted on the website, which I saw, which I thought was very helpful. So as you're aware, on June 15th, we received a dispatch of smoke in the area, smoke, odor outdoors, pretty quickly upgraded to a structure fire. Not only were we dispatched, but the city of Cincinnati was receiving multiple calls as well, since we're right on the border with their jurisdiction. Same type of situation, lots of smoke in the area, nobody was really sure what it was. And it turned out that it actually was not a structure fire. It was actually outside the building. It involved fencing that they stored there on site. The fencing was wire fencing coated with PVC black coating sitting on wooden pallets, and that was where the fire actually was. It also involved a work van that was sitting next to the pallets. So when it was all said and done, there was no structure involved, which was fortunate. It's a big building that has a lot of heritage in it. We're happy not to have to be inside that. A lot of labor intensive trying to get to the seat of the fire. We'd like to thank, and I did in the update, Gulf Manor Service Department. They came down with the backhoe to help us pull that fencing apart, those pallets apart, saved us quite a bit of time and quite a bit of effort. There were media reports that somebody was injured and taken to the hospital on the fire. We don't know where those reports came from. They were unfounded as far as we can tell. We had no reports to our command post. City of Cincinnati didn't have any updates from their department. They had sent anybody. So it might have just been somebody saw something, made an assumption, and they got out in print before they actually got the information from us. So it happens. Clearly, we're happy that nobody was overcome by anything. Was hot that day. We did provide everybody with water, Gatorade, ice, and towels to cool off. It was all said and done about 4.5 hours of work by the time we got back to the station, cleaned up, and restocked. So everybody from the city to the Gulf Manor Police Department, the Service Department, our mutual aid partners in the county, once we kind of got the communications under control, working with so many departments, they went really smooth. Again, it amounted to a big outdoor fire, not a structure fire. We're estimating the damage is about $180,000. We won't really know for sure unless we get for the insurance company what they classify it as, but we're required to report to the state, to the federal government, our estimate of the loss. It's just the best guess based on our knowledge and maybe blue book value of vehicles or what it retails for, the fencing. So I think the big takeaway from this is there was some concerns that we saw on social media early on, because we had a pretty robust command staff. I was able to notify the village manager that we did have an incident, and he had mentioned that there were some social media comments asking what was going on. So I was able to actually jump on the Gulf Manor Facebook page real quick, give an update that everybody was safe. There was no need to evacuate or shelter in place. Didn't rise to that level of an incident. But I did see some comments that people said they weren't getting through 911 as quickly and easily as they thought they should. So I reached out to the Hamilton County Communications Director, Andy Knapp, and he was able to break down the call volume from before the fire, through the fire, and then as it kind of tailed down. And their calls spiked. They went from, the emergency phone calls went from about 45 calls in an hour to 63 in an hour, and then 57 for the next hour. So much more than they're used to getting. But part of the problem was because they were getting so many calls, they try to answer them as quick as they can. They answer 911 calls first, the non-emergency line second. But the problem was when somebody didn't get an answer right away on the 911 line, they would hang up their phone. And that creates what's called an abandoned call. And by policy, the comm center has to call back every abandoned call because they don't know, it could have related to the fire, which we all knew about, but it could have been a call for police service or another emergency medical service somewhere else in the county. So every time somebody dropped a call, they have to call back, which took a call taker off of the 911 lines to try to track down those calls. So it kind of like a snowballing effect that does cause some delay. So he asked me to remind you, and I basically included his email almost verbatim. I cleaned a few things for clarity. Basically, the best policy for anybody that calls 911, even if it feels like it's taking a while for them to answer, stay on the line, don't hang up. It prevents them from having to pull people off the phones to try to track you down for your emergency. And again, they don't know if it's for the same one or for something different. You can make some assumptions, but you don't want to do that when you're talking about 911 services. City of Cincinnati, I just had some rough numbers from them that they received about 50 phone calls hitting the cell towers near the park over here. 8 of them on their system as well. A call of 50 plus calls in a short time over their normal call taking. It puts a strain on them as well. But at the end of the day, if there's any takeaway is when you call, stay on the line. Try not to hang up if you can. It just saves them a lot of trouble. So I thank them for that information, and I promised Andy I would get that information out as we can, and it's on your website, which I think is great. So please direct any residents to that if they have questions. They can reach out to me, and I can put them in touch with Hamilton County Communications as well. They're always happy to help people understand how the system works and educate them on the procedures that they use. So That pretty much takes care of the high level on the weedy incidents. Moving back into the remainder of June,
Sorry, Chief Meter, you
Okay,
said
okay.
that it's called dead calls,
they call them abandoned calls.
abandoned calls. Okay, thank you.
Do we know what started the fire or is?
So we don't have a cause that's going to be listed as undetermined unless the insurance company wants to pursue bringing in their own investigators, which typically they wouldn't do since it's not a huge property loss for them if it involved the building. There was some concern that the building owner was going to look at some videotape that they have security cameras there to see if anybody was in the area before the fire. However, one of the employees did mention to one of the fire officers on scene that they had seen smoke on Friday afternoon in that vicinity, and they thought that they had put some water on it and put it out. So it could have been something that's been smoldering for, up to 24 hours. And it could be something from the heat, maybe something from that work truck was there, was hot and got something smoldering, they didn't know it. Could have been a discarded cigar. I mean, there's really no way of telling once you have that much damage. So, and unless you could definitely prove that you had somebody in there, you sold them after they light the fire, it would be almost impossible to prosecute with what evidence we would have at the time. So unfortunately, a lot of these just turn into undetermined, and we let the insurance companies then work with the building owners, the property owners to go from there and see if they want to pursue it further. Even in house fires, that happens quite a bit. We might narrow it down to an area, to your kitchen, or maybe your furnace. We won't definitively say it's that because we might want the insurance company to go back through, and if they can go back on the producer of the furnace or the air conditioner, they can reclaim money to help offset their payments to their residents. So unless we can clearly show that it's something that's going to be arson related, we wouldn't normally call in like the Government Investigation Team in the county. For this, it would have probably been a lot of work on them without much result for us to give any definitive answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else on that? And I'll jump into June. Okay. So June, total runs for Golf Manor were 56. Again, the majority of that, 41, actually 50 of those calls, so 50 to 56 had an ambulance on scene. Some of that was, again, the fire down at the at Mills Fence. Nothing out of the ordinary in terms of calls that we're seeing come in. It's the medical runs are what they are. It's trouble breathing, it's chest pain, it's some diabetics and people that need some EMS lift assist off the floor. Again, so nothing out of the ordinary that would cause any concern for me. Again, if we start to see repeated addresses, especially for things like lift assist, we try to see if we can find resources that might help residents better take care of themselves or find a way that's not using 911 for that kind of thing. We have the same situation in Silverton and Deer Park. We have residents that are in their homes longer than they used to be. They're older. We've been working with a couple of residents in the Silverton area, try to get them some help through the Council on Aging or some other services, some of the health department as well. They kind of make their homes a little bit more livable. We do the same thing for your residents here. If we see something, we try to get them pointed in the right direction for resources that can help them. We're not here to make life tough on anybody, but we know that just, as you age and get older, it's a little bit tough to get around. So resources we'll point it to. So that's something that you as council members, as the mayor, if you have resources that it's something that's good to get out to the community through your web pages or through just some discussion you have with your members, always point them in the right direction. That's what we try to do as well. I think other than that, real quick through this far. I have nothing else related to that. We were down for the 4th of July parade, albeit a little wet. It was a little quicker than we were used to. I guess typically there's like an honor garden that usually walks that I guess wasn't there this year, and it's hard for. I know the police were in the lead. It's hard for us to judge how fast we should go. So we kind of followed the lead of the lead vehicles, and we got done last perfect raining. So there wasn't a lot of people out, but yes, my God, we got through quick. But not having that color guard typically walk through, it's hard to control that speed and understand how fast you're going. So, but we still threw out plenty of candy. I got plenty left. What we haven't used then, we'll use for either Deer Park High School's homecoming parade, or we'll save it for Halloween when we come back through. So it will not go to waste. But we still had a good time, even though it was wet. So again, we look forward to doing these things for the community.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? All right.
And then I know the two new council members. It's nice to meet you. Pretty much, the rest of council say I'm pretty open door about what we do, what we can provide. Any questions, feel free to contact me directly at the office, email me, telephone, whatever. I'm happy to explain what we do, how we do it, and how we fit in with the community down here. It's been just over 3 years now, and we've been really pleased, and I'm hearing from the residents that they're pleased as well. So we'd like to keep that up. So for the new members, if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you, kind of let you know any interesting things you might have questions on. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Very good. All right, thank you, sir.
Yes. In that case, I will take my leave.
All
All right.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
How did you this meeting?
Sorry?
How did you?
Look, we've had board meetings that we've had short notice issues to where we can get a quorum, and I know it's inconvenient, frustrating for people, but it's life, and it's it's okay. I found something else to do that evening, so it was okay. So, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, we'll shift into, I got a couple of things to report. Thanks to everyone who helped with our 4th of July parade and picnic, helped make it a success, including all those who showed up in the rain. I was surprised how many residents lined the streets along the route despite the rain. We clearly had less turnout than we've had for non-rainy parades, but for a rainy parade, we had quite a few more than expected. Want to give a special thanks to Captain Reed, without whom the parade would not have been possible. He coordinates the parade every year and does an excellent job. Thanks to Captain Reed, I get to additionally thank all these other organizations that participated. The Deer Park Silverton Fire EMS, the Amberley Village Police Department, the Ohio State Patrol, Hamilton County Parks, Hamilton County SWAT, Cincinnati SWAT, Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, UC Police, Campus Police, UC Health, Xavier Police, and of course our own Gulf Manor Police Department and our Gulf Manor Maintenance Department. The Maintenance Department did a lot of work additionally to clean up the park and have it ready for our picnic, and the park looked great because of it. So I specifically want to thank Joe, Jason, Aiden and Jaden, and Andy for all of their work in making that happen. The rain did clear up and we were able to serve at least 50 folks by my count at the picnic. Thanks to an anonymous donation, there was plenty of food, drinks, and treats. I want to thank Vice Mayor David Fisher for all he did coordinating volunteers, food, and supplies to make the event a success, as well as former council members Danny Knipp and Eric Prignoff for their volunteer help. Danny doing the music and Eric doing a little bit of everything, or rather probably a lot of everything. In addition to all the residents that showed up for the picnic, I want to recognize the other former officials who attended, including former mayors Zafiro and Schwartzberg and former Vice Mayor Du Bois. Residents 18 and older are being asked by the Hamilton County Board of Health to complete a short survey to share how they view the health and well-being of themselves, their family, and their community. Questions address things like healthcare, community connection, and other factors that impact overall health. Community connection is a new factor that the Health Board is tracking, which the World Health Organization recognized at the end of last year to play an important role in positive health outcomes. The survey is available until August 31st. To access that survey, I have a link in my report, which will be posted online. The survey is available in 6 languages. Let's see, the new committee assignments. I'll be assigning new council members. I'll be assigning our new council members to committees in the next week or so. I haven't had the opportunity to speak to them individually about their interests since they came on board last week. I also have a resident that's come forward expressing interest in being assigned a committee. That's Ms. Roxanne Adams. And I hope to have that assignment completed within the next week or so. We'll keep you all updated on that. I have an update on the parks RFP, which there was a request for an update on that. I'm told that I'll have a draft on my desk this week for review. In the process of writing these so far, there are typically some edits I request, which results in Ron and I passing the document back and forth for a while. factoring that in, I hope to have the final version by the end of the month. We had a First Suburbs Consortium meeting of the executive board this morning that I attended. The request that we post YouTube videos of our guest speaker presentations that we have at our membership meetings went over well. It looks like we'll be doing that moving forward. And that is it for my mayor's report. Any questions?
I know we ask every meeting, when do we have to have the plan for the parks, that money spent? I thought it was the end of this month.
It has to be that it's dedicated. Meaning
Okay.
as long as that's dedicated, then we will be fine with the county.
Okay,
They give deadlines, but it's just, are you sitting on the money or are you actually doing something with it?
Right.
So as long as we're giving them touch points,
okay,
that-
okay.
And I was couching that timeline.
Okay, good,
You know,
good.
gonna get that in as soon as possible.
Cool, thanks.
I haven't seen it yet, and I need an opportunity to review it and ask for any edits. All right, if no other questions, I'm aware, I'll make you aware, Mr. Hirth is unable, our village administrator is unable to be here this evening. I did not receive an administration report from him, so I'll ask to move to the next item, which is our fiscal officer report.
So just following the public hearing in front of you or online is the 2025 tax budget proposal. I'm asking, the village in general is asking for council to consider this as the proposed tax budget to be submitted to the county tomorrow, essentially. But this is again, once annually, we have to propose that budget. That budget has to be reviewed by council and submitted to the county in July, and then in November, we will go through a similar process, but for specifically appropriations, which will also be submitted to the county.
So we have resolution 2024-10, which was added, which would adopt the tax budget, which we would then submit to the auditor. And this would be an appropriate time to do that.
Will we be doing let's see, we just have the activity report and the citation report from Chief Campbell, who's unable to be here this evening, and we don't have a representative from the police department to be doing those reports. So without objection, we'll jump over those reports as well and go directly to the solicitor's report with this legislation.
Very good, thank you, Your Honor. I apologize to council. This is my mistake. I did not get this resolution with the packet. I do have it, though. I am going to read it by title only because it was not posted online. So all we're going to need is for me to read it, and then for someone to
Mr. Butler, that was that you cannot read it by title only? Is that what you're saying?
I must read the whole thing. I cannot read it.
Correct.
But
Okay, I thought you said the opposite.
I'll read it very slowly. Resolution number 24-10, a resolution adopting a tax budget for 2025, whereas pursuant to section 5705.03 of the Ohio Revised Code, the taxing authority of each municipality is required to adopt the tax budget on or before the 15th day of July for the next succeeding year. Whereas a public hearing was held July 8th, 2024, public notice was given in the manner provided by law, and whereas copies of the budget have been filed in the office of the village administrator for public inspection for the 10-day period preceding the public hearing, now therefore be it resolved by the council of the village of Gulf Manor, Hamilton County, Ohio, that, section 1, council hereby adopts the tax budget proposed for 2025 in the form in which it has been proffered to this council by the administration, a copy of which is attached hereto and included herein by reference. In further conformity with section 5705.30 of the revised code, the budget shall be submitted to the county auditor. Bless you. Thank you. On or before July 15, 2024. This resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage. Past this 8th day of July 2024. I did not mean to be flippant about this. So I certainly welcome you all to take a look at it.
I appreciate it. I was going to ask you to.
No, I shouldn't have said that. I'll read it slowly.
I don't really ever want to
Not-
have a chance to read.
Silly most of the
Not
time.
to be a stickler for rules, but was there a motion to read that?
There doesn't need to be.
There does not need to be.
No, we're not,
Because we're not,
we're
okay.
not, yeah, we're not reading
We're
by
not trying
title
to
only.
shorten that.
Yeah.
Not trying to shorten the presentation.
So technically, you could just read the resolution if there was no motion to read by title only.
I would have to read it by,
You would have to.
right, but because, again, it was not published and posted and presented to council ahead of time, I'm required to read it by.
I like you listened to, I was listening. It's like pause and whereas, like, all right, new paragraph.
You wanna see it?
Yeah, it comes from doing a lot of dictation.
Yeah.
Putting colon.
Colon, right.
So does anybody have questions about this legislation? Is there a motion to pass, I should ask first?
Motion to pass resolution, 2024-10.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any questions about this? Would you like to give a summary of what you just read?
It's as Mr. Pridnoff said, this legislation adopts our tax budget. It's required to be presented to the auditor's office. There are some dollars attached to this. It used to be a lot more, but we get a lot of our, some money from the state is tied into presenting this by July 15th. Years and years ago, when there was a lot more money from the state for the local tax authorities, the city of Silverton didn't present this, and it was a huge part of their budget. They actually had to go to the state legislator. They passed a resolution there for them to get their money. So while it's not as important as it used to be, it's still very significant. It also begins the process for next year for establishing budget, passing it, appropriations, et cetera. It's kind of the first step.
Any questions? A roll call vote, please.
Does it just have to pass by emergency or? is-
Nope,
It's a resolution.
just a resolution, all we need is four.
Okay.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Dr. Fisher,
Yes.
Ms. Mail,
Yes.
Mr. Michelson.
Yes.
That is all I have, except, there was a lawsuit, which I'm not sure all of you, and I know the new folks weren't aware of, I don't know if, there's a lawsuit filed against the village, Latasha Bartlett.
Go into executive?
No, not on this one,
Um,
because it's over.
Okay.
Latasha Bartlett versus the Village of Gulf Manor. The village was granted summary judgment, which means the lawsuit's dismissed. Some of the background, the young lady was killed, shot by her boyfriend. She had disappeared for a while. The village was contacted by the young lady's mother. The police department did everything appropriate to try to find her. She reappeared, and within 24 hours, this guy killed her. So the theory was the village didn't do enough to protect her, which suffice to say, summary judgment does not get granted very often. What that means is, even if all the facts are true that you're alleging, the case still goes away. Because even if the facts are true, it's not enough to carry a lawsuit, okay? So it went away. These are handled by our insurance attorneys, covered by our insurance. But just, again, you never knew about it, well, it's gone away anyway, so just so you know.
You might have heard about that on the news,
Yeah.
but not through.
It was on the news a
I didn't
lot.
know the woman was killed though.
Yeah. It's very sad, it's very sad. But
I had an
our,
idea where she was, if we're talking about the same story, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
yeah, but our police department did everything
right.
they had to do, they needed to do. It's just a tragedy, really.
Do you know when the initial incident was off the top?
It was a good 2 years
Yeah.
ago.
Okay. It was
Yeah,
long.
this was a long time
This wasn't like a
ago.
recent.
Lawsuit started.
Yeah, well, there's a year statute of limitations on something like that, on a wrongful death, although they sued the Gulf Manor and a couple other theories. So, and then it probably took another year to wind through the system, so I think probably 3 years is
Oh, wow,
probably kind of good. And that is all.
Thank you. The executive committee report, Mr. Fisher standing in for our chair, Brittany Heimer.
Yes, we met tonight. We discussed a couple of points. The first thing we discussed was this resolution that we had over here about resolution 2024-9. It was discussed that it wasn't appropriate to be a resolution, as it is a practice of the village of how to do business, and this should be across the board, nothing to do with nonprofits. This should be something that we should have proper proceedings, who this village does business with. And as far as we're concerned, they always do business with real companies, and this is not really something that should be ordered.
So you're saying it should simply be, and by the way, I agree with you, okay? I agree with you. This should be a given. It should be a given,
It's a given, yeah.
that we don't deal with entities like that. But just understand why I produced it. And
One
for
second.
the new members of council.
Let me finish our report.
Oh, no, I'm on
The
a
next
roll.
part of the topic was that we don't know, that we have to, and this is gonna be up for discussion in our next executive meeting, is that, how did this get printed and used that much money before we had a discussion about it? It should have gone to executive straight, and what we have to fix up in the rule of council is make it clear if when a councilor wants a resolution to be done, what's the process that has to be taken. We do feel that should first come to executive with such a type of thing, we can have discussion, and if we feel it's proper, then it would go to the solicitor. In the past, it used to go either through the mayor or through Ron. We'll be having discussion if we're gonna change that in the rules of council.
I'm not sure you could do that. The charter provides that any member of council may present legislation. The mayor may present legislation. That's what I was getting to. When a council member asks me to present legislation, it's not up to me to say no. It's up to and then it goes to you, an executive, to see if it goes forward from there.
Well, if in
Or
rules of-
even, I'm sorry.
No, you're my fault.
No problem. Even regardless of that, it can still be driven to council for a vote by an individual member of council. I don't know that we want a situation where we have an executive committee that weeds out legislation, discusses it, forwards it on to council. I guess we have been doing that. We have been weeding it out, but really and truly, it's up to individual members of council to champion their legislation. It's kind of a job as well. So I'm just not sure I agree with that it should always go to executive and always be discussed before I do anything with it.
And so to be clear, in this particular case, a single council member directly asks you to
Ask me,
write
send
this
me
without
an
even
email.
going through the administrator? Really?
Yep. Well, and look, the duty of the council is legislative. We talk about this all the time. It is legislative. And it's, to keep everybody in their lane is not always easy, but it is legislative. I mean, typically the administration comes up with the legislation like this evening, like the tax budget, like the appropriations, modifying the appropriations, presenting the appropriations. But really, council absolutely has a power to present legislation on its own.
So
Individual members.
my question on that is in the
That's not a
order.
conflict of interest for
So
here.
what?
So in the order of what we have to abide by, according to Robert's rules, one of those is rules of council. And in our rules of council, it does state that most of our ordinances and resolutions have to come through the committees and eventually through the administrator.
It says most of them.
It says
It says
most,
most,
and the
yeah.
most is the sticking point. My layman's interpretation of most is anything that doesn't rise to a emergency type situation. But I know there is probably legalese to be worked around on the word most.
Yeah, well, most is the word that any attorney will tell you has created probably, 90% of the litigation in our country. Let me point out the language. All legislative powers of the village shall be vested in the council. And I know there's somewhere else that talks about how each
That's
member
in
of
the charter
council.
or that's in the legislative?
That's in the charter. Mhm.
He's talking about the rules.
I'm talking rules of council.
I know you are. Understanding,
Takes precedence.
understanding that nothing trumps the charter.
Right.
And then it also says, it also states the mayor may present.
Well, we can't supersede we can't supersede the powers given to us in the charter, but we can restrict our own powers. That is what the rules of council does, is it limits what, we set rules on what we should and should not be doing. That's not superseding the powers. Of course,
Unless it's, well, yeah, unless it does.
but it doesn't supersede, it just limits. It doesn't expand the powers, it only limits. It's a limiting factor, not an expansive factor.
I don't see the distinction.
Okay.
If you're saying you're limiting the powers but you can't limit the powers that are in the charter. You can't do it. And just to give you an example, and I thought this language was under council too, but it says the mayor shall have the right to introduce ordinances and resolutions. So the mayor can introduce them even though he doesn't vote on them unless there's a tie. I think the same thing goes for individual members of council. And historically that has happened a lot, where an individual member of council has an idea and they want it to go forward. Now, having said that,
Let me chime in
Go
before you
ahead.
do, because I think this question goes to the heart of it. Is there a way that maybe it's, and I'm asking you the question, what would be the best vehicle for this? Because I get that what I'm hearing is the biggest concern about this is around spending of money, right? And if we could use it more efficiently, like, hey, we've already discussed this quite a bit, and now you can spend some time writing the legislation piece. So is there a mechanism by which if put some more context on this, one of the things that I did with our former solicitor is I would get CC'd what the billing was, all right?
what?
The billable hours.
Billing,
Every month, the
All right.
billable hours, right?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get a sense of, all right, is this, be told at different times, well, it's gonna be higher because we're doing this contract with Miami, right? And so there's gonna be more hours, and so I'm like, okay, so we would expect the hours to come down, So just kind of tracking, are we spending more than usual or spending less than usual? Because it tends to be one of the higher parts of our operational budget, talking with the solicitor and everything. So what I'm wondering is, would the vehicle be rules of council to say something like, what we consider to be proper procedure is that if we have an idea for legislation, to discuss it in the appropriate committee so that we can hammer out any of the wording or whatever, or just draft it yourself, write it up yourself, what you think this legislation should look like. Let's pass it around and discuss it before we give it to the attorney to review. So maybe it's just an hour looking at it and tweaking it, as opposed to an hour preparing the draft and then an hour getting it back after we've tweaked it a bit. Is that a mechanism for that?
I've had council members do that before, not in the roundabout way you're talking where it goes through executive. I've had them just come and say, hey, look, here's what I think is a good piece of legislation. I typically end up not rewriting it, but there's significant changes that I make. I don't know. I don't see that as an issue. Again, the only concern I have is if we've got one member of council that wants and feels strongly about a piece of legislation and wants to bring it forward, that's their right.
Right.
And
we hear that.
Yeah, the question is, who writes it? And honestly, it's really and truly, they could write it themselves. They could come here, write it, bring it to council, let council vote on it, but that's not always going to have a great result.
May I ask your opinion on this line of the rules of council?
Yep.
the other council members, committee chairs, and appointed boards may utilize the service of legal counsel, but must be aware of the additional costs incurred by the village for consultation outside the negotiated contract. Does that mean,
Sounds like it means exactly what it says.
well, so what I'm asking is, if they must be aware, do they have to be informed, and like, if they're gonna utilize it, do they have to know what the cost is gonna be? Or is it
Oh, I
just
see
a
what you're saying.
suggestion of must? Meaning, if they're gonna
Yeah.
submit it to you to write it up, do they now have to say, Mr. Butler, how much is this gonna cost? Okay, great, that's gonna cost this. That's fine, I know how much it's gonna cost.
Yeah.
We're all gonna know how much it costs.
Yeah. It doesn't change anything.
It doesn't change it, but it would be useful information to know, because, maybe I actually don't need to bring this to Mr. Butler right now.
Yeah.
Maybe this is gonna be a $500 fee.
Right.
Let's bring this to committee or council first
I got you.
before taking that step.
I got you.
How strongly enforceable is that must be aware?
How strongly enforceable is that?
Or can we say that, moving forward, can you bless an interpretation of that, which means that if any of us is wanting to come before you for legislation, the first thing we're requiring of you is that you say, I think it's gonna cost about this much to do
I
what you're.
will always give an estimate.
Okay.
Not a problem at all.
Can we just operationalize that and say that,
Sure.
And he's
Moving
saying that's in
forward,
the
this
rules
was-
of council.
It's in the rules of council
Yeah.
currently.
right.
But must be aware.
Operationally, this is what
I-
it looks like.
Honestly, the way I read that, the way I hear that is if you bring it to me, you better know you're gonna get billed for it.
Right,
Mhm.
That's
that's what.
Not-
Is that really
not-
addressing the concern that you have? Because I don't know that it is. Somebody know.
Well, they
knowing
can
how
still
much
do it,
costs.
but then we could say it might influence their decision of, is this a worthwhile thing to bring to the solicitor at this time? Maybe we should bring it to write up as we can, our own ordinance or our own resolution. Talk about it, get feedback of everyone before we get a more, which I think is best practice, to get any ordinance or resolution signed off by the solicitor.
Well, I actually
do we
have
wanna-
to.
Yeah, that you have to.
That little line down in the lower left-hand corner that says approved.
Yeah.
Perform.
yeah, so that we
That's-
have to.
Yeah.
And so I think before we take that step, which costs us a fair amount of money, that it would be let's take a step back and think about this first. It's not gonna solve anything anyone could still bring anything seemingly, but it might give us a second pause to consider the actual impact on the village, and is this worth our time and taxpayer money?
Right, I was suggesting that we just operationally build that in, because it doesn't have to do with any individual, because every individual has the right to do that. So in terms of helping us as a body move forward with more awareness of what it's costing, maybe we propose a resolution right now that just says the attorney will provide an estimate when we come to him with, an idea.
And let me tell you,
Charge us to make
that would be.
How much would that cost us to do
Because-
that?
Let's see, that was an hour to estimate how much I would spend.
Estimate the
An
estimate.
estimate is a good way to put it, because some of the things I deal with, there's no real clear answer on them, and it takes time. Even that flag, I think it was resolution.
Yeah, it was.
Ordinance.
I believe it was an ordinance.
Yeah, it might have been. That, even though it's short, what you saw was a page and a half maybe. There was a fair amount of time it took to really nail that down. Research of case law and things like that. A lot of stuff that I do, it doesn't look like much when it gets to you, but there's more time put into it than you might imagine. So like that relatively short, simple resolution took a lot more time than you might imagine to prepare. That's why when it's an estimate,
Yeah.
because there's certain things I get into and I feel like, oh, I know the answer to this, like that. And then turns out there's been some case law that's overturned what I believed already. So I can even tell you with the flag ordinance, I thought the answer was going to be no, can't do it. Can't fly any flags other than U.S. or your village or your county flag. And it turned out that when it comes to flags, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, City of Cincinnati puts raises Juneteenth and.
They do,
Yeah,
they do, but yeah,
in a pride.
But I mean, if you tried to put up a-
Transgender Day of
Yeah,
Remembrance flag, they do
if-
all that.
right, but if you try to put up even just a sign or put it on your website, promoting something, which is kind of what a flag does, you can't do it. But when the flags are just, and I don't know why, but they make the law makes a distinction for that. So I don't know what we've nailed down or established here. I mean, could you state your idea again?
Yeah, so the idea is that we resolve that basically operationally, we are asking that the attorney, whenever there's an inquiry made to the attorney about legislation that, from a council member, that the attorney will give an estimate of what that's gonna cost to proceed forward with it.
It might be something that you amend your rules of council.
Yeah.
That must, because again, must be aware sounds,
Mm-hmm.
it just sounds like you better think
Well,
about
we
it beforehand.
Yeah,
But, you know, should inquire as to the costs of whatever.
Shall inquire.
Yeah, shall inquire. Yeah, that's, you think like a lawyer.
Oh, trust me, we had a whole discussion earlier about shoulds and shalls.
So, and to that point, my understanding, listening in on the executive committee meeting around that, is that what we may be looking forward to is some amendments being requested to the rules of council. Do we want to just put this in that batch of proposed amendments and deal with it that way?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that,
I think
yeah.
that's fair.
Okay. All right. Anything else for executive?
Yeah, back to my report. Thanks for the break. Also, we start discussing conflict of interest forum on our rules of council. It talks about recusing yourself and filling out a form once a year. We started a discussion on that, and we will continue discussion on that at our next executive meeting. And that's the end of my report.
Very good, thank you. Planning Commission is scheduled, there is no meeting yet scheduled. Those are scheduled as needed, and no one has come forward with any Planning Commission content. The community engagement, our chair isn't here today. Was anyone provided a report to read?
She just said in her email, when she said she wasn't feeling well, that we meet Wednesday. So at 6, community engagement plus rec should be Wednesday at 6 p.m. But no updates since last week, other than there's the buy nothing swap this weekend. That's something like a big deal. I encourage everybody to participate.
So
That
that's
they'll post details on the website.
And yes, the last sentence, we'll post details on the website tomorrow morning,
Again, the buy nothing swap is
this weekend.
and the next community engagement is Wednesday, the 10th at 6 p.m.
Correct. That would be community engagement plus recreation commission.
Finance did not meet tonight.
Oh,
due
that's
to no
right.
quorum.
Finance did not meet tonight due to no quorum. So that ends our scheduled business. Any other comments?
Could you add a meeting regarding raising real estate, rescheduling the public hearing?
Okay.
Could you schedule that for August 19th? David, how long do your finance committee meetings typically last?
So fast,
15 minutes?
sometimes.
Sometimes
The question is
less?
how fast Eric talks.
Because I was thinking,
it's gonna be 2 months next time.
I was thinking we could do it at 6:45. Because I don't anticipate anybody showing up, but I don't
That's
want
about the Stover.
to.
Since there's 2 months of financial package to review, maybe just council at 7:15 might be just a little bit easier.
Move council to
Or
7:15.
let's move it to, or 6:55 to 7.
Oh, yeah, like I said, I don't anticipate anybody showing, although I will be making a record, regardless of if anyone shows up for it or not. And Mr. Putoff will be here. to present
What was the
that.
time requested?
We could do 6:55.
The council start after that, whichever one comes first, 7 or after
I don't like it when we schedule them that way. I'm more comfortable just saying it's at 7 and we'll do our council meeting at 7:15
Okay. Works.
without objection.
that.
All right, so I will add that to our, so it's 7 PM on the, what's the date of our next one? So
August
it's
19th.
August 19th. Council at 7:15. All right, so I'm going to read through all these. Our next upcoming meeting is community engagement. That's Wednesday, the 10th at 6 PM. We then have our, we have our executive committee meeting on August 19th at 6 PM. Finance committee scheduled at 6:30 PM. We have our public hearing on Stover at 7 PM. And then our full council meeting at 7:15 PM. On August 7th, I'm sorry, I got that out of order. We also have another community engagement meeting at 6 PM. Any other announcements?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you for your service, everyone.
Our team was wrong.
You in terms of this one?
I hope so.